Welcome to the OK Let's Learn podcast. This is two podcasts in one. One where we dive into tons of family-friendly books and stories, and another where we just dive into tons of topics. My name is Kevin O'Keefe. So today, let's learn all about the country of Seychelles. What? Say what? Yes, here's the thing. I'm doing my previous podcast episode on palm trees, and I came across this country that, yes, has the largest palm seed. And of course, I go down the rabbit hole, and here's why you got to know about this country. It's so fascinating. Number one, it's over 100 islands. It's an archipelago. It's a country in Africa off the coast of mainland Africa. It's almost in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It was, for most of its history, completely deserted. No one lived there. And yes, today, it's one of the most expensive places to stay overnight and buy a home. Okay, let's learn all about Seychelles. And first up, you may be thinking, what about the name? Where does it come from? It's got to have something to do with shells, seashells. Nope. It's named after an 18th century French politician, Viscount Jean Moreau de Seychelles. He was a finance minister under King Louis XV. And this French naval captain in 1756, his name was Colonel Nicolas Morphy. Well, he was the first one to claim the islands for France, and to flatter the man that funded his expedition, he named one of the islands Isle des Seychelles. And of course, the guy never left France, stayed in his office, and never visited the islands that were ultimately named for him. So where exactly is it? Find on the map of the world Madagascar, that big island off the coast of Africa, the eastern coast of Africa, and just north. You cannot even see the islands with your naked eye on a map, even on a Google map. You got to zoom in, and there you see it. It's the smallest country in Africa. It's only 176 square miles, but it's an archipelago, which means it's a group of islands. And yes, there's almost 120 separate islands, but only a few of those islands are inhabited by people. And the three big ones are Maé, La Digue, and Praslin. Maé is the main island, and it's the largest island. It's got the airport, it's got most of the government, most of the businesses, and by far the largest share of the population. The capital is Victoria, and again, if you're thinking capital, you're not thinking any skyscrapers. There's no big, dense population. You got to think of almost kind of like a little town city anywhere else in the United States. But here's the thing. You're going to find Catholic, Anglican influences. You're going to see Hindu temples and mosques. So many different cultures are here that bring us to the fascinating part of this country. Who are the native people? There weren't any. That's one of the most important things to understand about this country. Unlike Hawaii, Madagascar, New Zealand, and many of the Pacific Islands, Seychelles doesn't have an indigenous human population. Sailors certainly knew about the islands, but before the Europeans arrived, yes, no proof, no confirmation that there was anybody living here before. So amazing. So who first came here? As I mentioned before, it was France. They claimed the islands during the 1700s. In 1770, the first permanent settlement was established. It was a small group of Europeans along with Africans and Indians. One historical account actually described the first group as specifically, listen to this, 15 white settlers, 8 Africans, and 5 Indians. And yes, right from the beginning, unfortunately, Africans were enslaved. And this fact, you have to understand right from the beginning, brings us forward because enslaved Africans, when they were brought to the island, French culture and language became deeply rooted, but it was all about plantations. By the time control eventually passed from France to Britain, the island's population had grown to more than 3,500 people. And how did that happen? Well, the answer is all about Napoleon. During those long wars between Britain and France, British forces gradually gained control of French possessions all over the Indian Ocean. Britain took control of Seychelles during that time, and during the Treaty of Paris in 1814, formally placed Seychelles under British rule. For lots of years, it was administered as a dependency, which basically means under control of another country in the Indian Ocean controlled by Britain, and that country was Mauritius. But then in 1903, it became a separate British colony, and so obviously it had years of influences. France left its language, name, food, culture. Britain left English and a lot of the political institutions, and obviously other institutions, and yes, Africans brought traditions of their own. Indian and Chinese later became important parts of more culture in the country. And then basically what this mixture created is Creole culture, which basically means it's a reflection of a mix of African, European, and Asian's roots. Trying to divide or to say Seychelles people neatly into one category doesn't fit. It doesn't work. Many families are combinations of African, Madagascar, French, British, Indian, Chinese, and other ancestry. It's a mixture that is perfect for an eclectic, diverse group of people with their language, their religion, their music, and especially food. The official language is Seychelles, Creole, English, and French. Having said all this, in terms of the religion, predominantly it's Roman Catholic, 61% of the population. And speaking of the population, it's only 125,000 people, which is basically a few towns in Bergen County, New Jersey, where I live. I mean, Bergen County alone has almost 1 million people. It became an independent country from Britain in 1976, and today it's a presidential republic as of the recording of this episode, which is summer of 2026, and it's got competitive elections. The big industries are absolutely tourism, but tuna is big because it's got such a large area in the ocean. Fishing and fish processing are huge in terms of its economy. Now, that huge seed, the palm tree seed that's the largest in the world, sometimes weighing up to 30 pounds. This is why I'm doing a podcast today. So where is it? It's in Braslin, the second largest island. Well, there's this nature preserve. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a Vallée des Mai Nature Preserve. So that's where this particular palm tree is, called a Coco de Mer palm. And like I mentioned, this seed is huge, but here's the thing that I didn't mention. It has a strange shape. And kids, cover your ears. They have a nickname for it, the butt nut. Are you kidding me? Yes, it looks like, you know what, I'm not going into details here, but they actually believe, or a lot of people thought it was like two coconuts fused together. And as the story goes, these seeds would wash up on beaches all over the Indian Ocean, and people didn't know where they came from. Some believed it was like came from this mysterious tree that was under the sea, and that's where the name Coco de Mer comes from, coconut of the sea. Eventually, they found it, obviously naturally growing in this country, and like it or not, this is clearly one of the most famous aspects of this paradise in the Indian Ocean. Now, there's two other things you've got to know when you talk about Seychelles other than this seed, for Pete's sakes. On the third largest island, La Digue, There are scattered on the beach, beautiful, pristine beach. There's these giant, smooth rocks the size of houses all over the white sand. While every other tropical island in the world was made by volcanoes or coral reefs, the Seychelles is completely different because its main islands are made of solid ancient granite. Millions of years ago, when the continents broke apart, these islands were basically left alone in the middle of the ocean. Over long periods of time, obviously rains, crashing waves, they sculpted these heavy rocks into these smooth, curved, groove shape that you see in photographs. Now, obviously, check it out. I'm not going to be able to show you here, but just know it's something that's so unique and different than anything else in the world. And finally, the third biggest thing that you should know about this country is the giant tortoises. They're called the Aldabra giant tortoise. They grow up to 550 pounds and easily can live for more than 150 years. They look and act like living dinosaurs, slowly grazing on grass, leaves, fruits, you name it. They are actually a massive conservation success story. While they were once hunted almost to extinction by the early settlers, they are now strictly protected, and visitors can walk right up to them as they freely roam around the island's plantation and reserves. Now, I mentioned up front it's expensive, and it is, but it's not the most expensive place in the world to visit in terms of islands. But just know that the country is not able to produce everything that it needs, so it pretty much imports everything. Why? Again, it's in the middle of an ocean, right? So the energy and everything, if you're thinking of tourism, everything that's in that kitchen, anything you got to buy, for the most part, it's imported. Now, in terms of food, you've got the broad spectrum of any kind of influence, but I tell you what, here's a fun fact. Fruit bat curry. Yes, the island has this fruit bat. It's sometimes called a flying fox. And yes, apparently it's traditionally appearing in a lot of the local cuisine. But obviously, seafood is the big dish. In terms of the weather, well, it's right near the equator, so it's hot. But it's interesting, May through September actually brings a lot of trade winds from the southeast, so it's actually cooler and drier throughout that time period as opposed to October through March. Now, to wrap up the podcast, we got some unique animals that, again, are only found in this archipelago country. Other than the fruit bat, that flying fox, you've got the Seychelles black parrot. You got the Seychelles magpie robin, which is this beautiful black and white bird. You've got this unique warbler. You've got a blue pigeon. You've got a palm frog. And there's this extremely small, rare owl found on Maie. It's called the Scops owl. And absolutely positively, tons of green sea turtles, and they call them hawksbill turtles. So, friends, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, learning all about Seychelles. Hey, only 125,000 people. It's more than just a luxury vacation destination. It's a tiny, remote, extremely difficult to reach archipelago islands, but the best part that makes it so special, it's the smallest African nation in the middle of the Indian Ocean that's not even close to Africa. It is an island paradise that has huge seas, huge tortoises, and huge round granite boulders sitting on a beautiful sandy white beach. Friends, reach out to me at kevmok21@gmail.com. We are on Spotify. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We are on most podcast platforms, and I always appreciate the reviews, the ratings. Tell a friend, tell a family member that likes podcasts, that's curious, loves to learn. And finally, I have an important announcement. We will be on Substack soon. And now look in the podcast notes. You can support the podcast as a producer. I'll mention you on every episode. If you go to the links, patreon.com/CW/OK Let's Learn, no spaces. The link is in the podcast notes as of this episode. And yes, it costs money to get this podcast out every single episode, obviously the time. So any financial support you could offer is obviously appreciated. And feel free to reach out to me if you would like to sponsor the show as well on the podcast at my email, kevmok21@gmail.com. Until next time, have fun and keep learning.